Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting experts straight talk in your ear. These podcasts deliver great interviews with industry leaders and Zweig Group's 3 decades of invaluable research, leadership, management, marketing, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop personally and professionally, wherever you are.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm here today with none other than Mark Zweig, founder and chairman of Zweig Group. So excited to drag him into my office for a few minutes just to chat, and it's been a minute since we've had him on the podcast, but we always like to check back in and see what the chairman is up to and see what he's been doing lately. And as you know, in the past, we used to have Mark read his articles from the Zweig Letter, which, you know, after a while, that became kind of boring. And so we wanted to ramp up the conversation, if you will, and engage a little bit more with this individual that has had almost 38 years of experience in the design industry. And I know that, when you say that out loud, it sounds like, man, this guy is really old, but he's not. He's actually a quite young 60, and still has so much more roadway left. So
I feel like all I do is go to doctors. I just set an appointment before this session we're having right now.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we need to. I mean, listen,
all I do.
You take your car to get tuned up. I mean, it's the same principle. It doesn't matter. So, and you do pretty well at taking care of yourself. So. That's half the battle. But no, in all seriousness, we're really glad to have you on today. And the reason why I wanted to talk with you for this particular episode is that you wrote an article not too long ago in the Zweig Letter from August 6th edition of the Zweig Letter about selling a lot of work. And it's a thing that we do, that the necessary thing that has to be done in order for firms to stay viable, to stay alive. And you said that we all should know by now that those who can sell a lot of work are the people who rise to the top of their firms, have the greatest job security, and make the most money. That's a direct quote from you from that article. And so I wanted you to kind of talk about, and for those listening, understanding this idea that if you're an engineer, if you're an architect, if you're an introvert, and you've never really kind of pushed yourself to get out of your shell and to engage others, not just internally but externally, stakeholders in the community that you serve, potential clients that you could work with. Now is the time for you to try to exercise that muscle. And it really is a muscle. It's not people. There's no such thing as I don't believe there's a such thing as a natural born salesperson. I believe that people understand and find their voice. Some find it earlier than others, and when they find it, they use it to their advantage. And Mark has basically sold things since he was, from my understanding, since he was quite young, like almost 10 or 11 years old.
Even younger.
Even younger, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean
that's
to shortchange
right.
you.
No,
So
that's fine.
But
selling bikes on my mom and dad's street corner.
Yeah, there in Missouri. But I think it's appropriate that. So some people would say, well, Mark, you were a natural. You know, if there is such a thing as a natural, you were a natural, and I think that I don't know if that's the case, but I think you found your voice early on, and you made it work. And I think that's why you came up with a couple of different things that individuals can do, and what real salespeople are able to do that differentiate them from everyone else. And one of the first things you said is that they believe they can succeed. So talk a little bit about that and just that belief and that mindset.
Well, I mean, it's a fundamental thing. If you don't think you can do something, you're probably not going to be able to do it. And it's just like your kids with math or whatever they struggle with. One of my daughters, she's 12, she, gets into this cycle or has been in it before. Well, I'm not good at math. Well, she is because you've seen her standardized test scores.
Right.
But she's convinced she's not good at math. As soon as she starts getting the idea that she is good at it, she has some success, has a nice supportive teacher, whatever, then suddenly she's good at math.
Right.
You know, the belief is so fundamental, and you see it with people in the architecture and engineering business. They didn't go to school to become salespeople. They went to school to be engineers or architects or whatever they are, and some of them just think they can't do it. It's not, you know, they, for whatever reason, they think there's a stereotypical personality type that they have to have, or,
Right.
or, you know, they tried selling something once and failed, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you got to believe you can do it. You got to be able to visualize it. You got to believe you deserve to succeed. You got to believe you have the capability to do it.
Okay. All right. And I know you had over the years, you've told tons of stories about what I would quote call introverted engineers or introverted architects that have been hugely successful at selling.
It's true.
So that there's not there's not any one type of individual that will excel over another. And what comes to mind, and I know you've told this story many times, is that your dear friend Joe Lally, who used to work at used to manage, I guess, at EDSA, and he was quite skilled, even though he was somewhat of an introvert.
Yeah,
he was quite skilled at selling.
That's right,
and brought in a lot of business for EDSA a ton of business over the years. But you've told many stories about his ability to sit down with somebody one-on-one and just reel them in slowly but surely.
He did, because he was really a good problem solver, you know, and he would look at the situation. He didn't just do what people told him, or didn't just solve the problem that was brought to him. He was a much bigger picture thinker than that, and he would share some of his ideas with the people, and of course, inevitably, it resulted in some really big stuff.
Right.
But he did not meet any stereotypes. He was a very slow talking person. He didn't look at people when he talked with them a lot of the time. He kind of talked to the side. He had a lot of speech mannerisms where he said, you know, and things like that over and over. And yet, in spite of all that, the guy was a tremendous salesperson. He had very high prices. People loved him, and was a huge success in his field as a landscape architect and planner.
Yeah. Do you think he was able to? It sounds like he was able to develop some empathy with his clients.
Oh yeah,
and that is huge. I think.
Sure, he could put himself in their shoes. He understood what was important to them.
Yeah.
Not just what was important to him, but he related that to design, and it was a fantastic. Guy was extremely intelligent. I mean, let's face it, just being smart helps.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But he thought he could do it. Clearly, he did, and did do it.
And just made it work.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the second thing that you said is that they have to have a disciplined approach toward their selling activities. And I think I know where you're going with this, but talk about what you think in your mind is a successful and disciplined approach for an engineer or architect to undertake to really start to develop that sales muscle.
Well, I think it's just doing certain things on a schedule. You know, devoting a certain amount of time to making your calls, a certain day to make those calls, making sure you make those calls, talking to people, not necessarily trying to sell them anything, but making calls to current, potential, and past clients to maintain these relationships on a steady, basis. I mean, it's what you see. This is why I think a lot of people fail in our business when we hire these full-time business developers. They don't have any self-discipline, and there's nobody that's imposing it on them.
Right.
You know, if they worked at a stock brokerage firm or a professional recruiting firm or an insurance brokerage or something, they would have to make so many calls a day. They would have to report back to management on their activities constantly, sometimes even daily.
Yeah.
And we don't apply that. We don't have these sales managers in our businesses by and large. Maybe a few large materials testing firms or labs or somebody like that does, but most of us don't. And so then it takes somebody who's got that self-discipline,
right,
to act like their own sales manager. You know, what would the sales manager say to me right now? if I wasn't selling anything. Did you make your calls?
Right.
How many calls did you make? How many people did you talk to? Okay. It's just so fundamental. I mean, a lot of it isn't technique. It's just effort.
Yeah.
You put the effort out, not to mention the fact you get practice a lot. You get a lot more practice, so you're going to get a lot better just because you're getting more practice from somebody who doesn't make their calls.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that I learned from you, and I know that I haven't always been historically good at this. Usually when I can catch people, I can make things happen, but I'm just sitting here looking at my little index card that I make out each day now, and part of my routine is just to write down how many sales or follow-up calls that I want to make each day, and I've gotten 10 on this little card, and
that's awesome.
My goal is to get through this through the day, and some of them will just be calls just to check in and see how you're doing, and
sure.
And others will be, hey, did you get the proposal? And still others will be, just wanted to chat and talk to you. And I think we collectively, us in the design industry, that especially you as architects or engineers that serve this space, need to get comfortable with just having conversations with people, and seeing where they lead.
No, I think that's really true. I mean, the problem with trying to do things consistently is we're a project-oriented business.
Right.
And you understand that. You have to travel. You have things you have to do by certain deadlines. So those things take precedence, and they can, quote, get in the way. But somehow, it's just like making a decision that you're going to exercise every day. We can all, and Lord knows I'm really good at making excuses as to why I don't do it consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But, the fact is you could do it if you forced yourself to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's just, you've got to have the discipline.
Yeah.
And I think that's really critical when it comes to the selling. Because, sometimes you're going to do well, sometimes you're not. But if you just keep making the effort out there, keep baiting those hooks, then sooner or later somebody's going to bite.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned was that a good salesperson values a long-term relationship with other people.
Yeah.
And
it's not just transactional, what I can get out of you now, and then I don't care after that. I made my big kill.
Right.
There are some people that think like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand, but they do.
Yeah.
Because they defeat themselves. It's sooner or later you run out of victims. It takes a lot more effort to always be winning new people over than it is to keep the same ones that you've already won over.
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to, maintain long-term relationships with those people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Some of those things, I mean, it just, it's fantastic when you see where they go over time. You really get to see it when you're my age because, just like here, we have a woman who works for us, Hadley, and her grandfather was one of my first clients.
I know.
He worked at 3D International, Russell Laird. That's so cool. It goes back 38 years. And then he was the one that got me into Carter and Burgess, and I just maintained a relationship with the guy.
Yeah.
And we talked, and I ended up doing a lot of business with him, then got me my job at Carter and Burgess, and then all the stuff that's happened since then.
And Carter and Burgess was instrumental in launching you as a client at Zweig, White and Associates.
Oh yeah, they were our biggest client.
Yeah.
At one point. So yeah, that's true.
Relationships can take you everywhere. So,
Yep.
again, don't look at it as, well, what can I get out of this person? It's ultimately, what can you give that person?
Right.
And I think that there's a much different mindset. And if you think of it from that perspective about what you can give as opposed to what you can get, the get will ultimately happen, but what you give to an individual can pay off, very much so in the long term. So
yeah, all we need is love.
Yeah,
it's equal.
Exactly.
The love we get is equal to the love we give.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
That was my fifth point in this article that you're referring to. Good salespeople, they like to help people.
Yeah. Yeah, you talked about a guy that's a top car salesman, actually. And when we think about car salesmen, it's like we want to take a shower when we talk about it, because we're like, oh, it's just unethical and it's a dirty space. But
he doesn't feel like that at all.
No, and I actually know some really top car people that are really, really good people and legitimately care about each and every person they sell a car to. So
this guy sold 270 cars last year, and he's like, I just like to help people.
And
That's how I see it. Whatever they come to me, they got a problem, they need transportation, they want something special, whatever. I help people.
Yeah.
And that's just true mentality.
Yeah.
And if you ever deal with him, you'll find he's not pushy at all either. That's a really nice aspect about him. He doesn't follow up and try to close the sale or push you. He just helps you till you make the decision.
Right. And that's a good point, because I think a lot of times, even if you are trying to go after work that maybe you don't necessarily get, you miss out on some tremendous opportunities to follow up with those what would have been potential clients, just to see how things are going and to see if things have worked out the way that they thought they would work out. And then invariably, sometimes you're going to get the answer, you know what, things didn't work out the way that we hoped, and I'm glad you called me because I'd like to talk with you about possibly helping me out. That happens a lot.
It does happen a lot.
So if you lose when it comes to trying to create a sale, don't give up.
Yeah.
Stay in contact. Then you come across as somebody that's definitely not out for just business, that you legitimately care, like Mark has been saying, and that will resonate with those individuals on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's not just a short-term process. You there's a lot of steps. You don't win every time, the first time.
Yeah.
And you got to keep going back. I think that's something too that a good salesperson understands. They're not going to get too freaked out if they don't get results right away.
Yeah.
You gotta make yourself a resource.
Yeah.
Be helpful.
Absolutely.
And after a while, you wear people down.
That, and the fact that over time, if you do good work, when you do actually sell something, which is key, people will always come back to you. Now, and there may be long periods of silence in between, but they'll just come back to you because of the relationship that you establish with them and the fact that they trust you. And if people trust you, and as you always say, Mark, know, like, and trust. If people trust you, forget it. It's game over. I mean, they're always going to ultimately come to you for help.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but
it takes time though to develop trust. You don't get it overnight.
No, you don't. You don't. So, and I think the challenge here is that a lot of people listening are like, well, you guys, I need to get some business in tomorrow. And I understand that. But if you're taking a long-term approach with the simple fact that you serve an industry, you serve the built environment where things are constantly being transformed, things are constantly being built, things are constantly being renewed, there's always going to be opportunities for you to take your skill set and really lend it to those that truly need it, to the client, to the end user. So just take your time and come up with a plan that really works and I think would be beneficial for you. So that's in a nutshell is what it's all about. And certainly this is not a long episode, and it's not something that you have to belabor or draw out. The simple idea is that if you want to become a better salesperson, if you want to truly develop those skills, is you have to get out there and communicate with people. Like Mark said, you've got to first believe that you can succeed, to have a disciplined approach to selling. Understand that you need to get out there and value long-term relationships with other people, things that are not going to happen in the short term. And that, sometimes it's just, you just have to be out there to help people. And if you do that, there will be a lot of opportunities for you to provide your services, to provide your expertise to the widest audience possible. So just wanted to encourage you with that. Any final thoughts, Mark, that you want to add to that?
Not really.
Okay. All right. I think we covered it. Yeah. Perfect. Well, folks, I just want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Like I said, it's always great to have Mark Zweig here with us, and really appreciate that. There's a lot of great things happening this fall, 2018, and I hope that you guys have had a restful summer and you're ready for what lies ahead and this end of third quarter into the fourth quarter of 2018 and beyond. And so I believe this actual episode is going to be one that's going to stand the test of time, because people will come back and listen to this over and over again for encouragement to get out there and really get some things done and maybe even transform their business development and or sales apparatus within the organization, so that you can keep track of what you're doing and that you can make a difference with individuals that you come across that are either potential clients or current clients or future clients. So that's my 2 cents, and I'm sticking with it. But thanks again for listening to the Zweig Letter Podcast. We want to remind you that, as always, we want to give you a free gift, and that is a digital subscription to the Zweig Letter newsletter. It comes out every Monday at 12 noon, and the Zweig Letter has run continuously since 1992. We have an outstanding cast of characters that write some amazing articles. We have a lot of guest writers from throughout the industry that provide their insight on what's happening in the design space. And it certainly would encourage you to read this on a regular basis. And listen, folks, this is not spam. This is great information. And there are very few outlets where you can get timely, updated, regular information for the design industry, and the Zweig Letter is one of those places. So just visit zweiggroup.com, go down, scroll down, and click on the Zweig Letter link. All you have to do is put your email address in, nothing else, and you will get a digital subscription to the Zweig Letter on a regular basis. So outside of listening to this podcast or any other podcast that you like to listen to, you can subscribe and get the digital subscription for the Zweig Letter. So we hope you take that under advisement and check it out. And if you get a chance, shoot me an email. All my information will be in the show notes. All of Mark's information are in the show notes. And believe you me, if you send Mark or myself an email, we will respond right away because we're all about responsiveness here at Zweig Group. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you to everyone in our listening audience. We hope that you have an amazing day, and we look forward to connecting with you next week. Remember, we exist not just to make you more successful. Our existence is beyond that now, and we're moving into some new areas where we're really excited to talk about. And over the next coming few weeks, we will share and reveal some of the things that Zweig Group is working on, really to help this industry grow and expand. And there's so many opportunities for us to do that within the design space. So we'll be excited to share that in the coming weeks and months ahead. And nevertheless, we appreciate you, and we appreciate you taking time out to listen to this podcast. If it's helped you in any way, please feel free to share it with a friend. And remember, sharing is caring. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and this has been another great episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter Podcast episode. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about M&A, strategic planning, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe now to the digital version of the Zweig Letter free of charge. Just visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe and leave your email address. Your free subscription will begin immediately.